I'm Babla Jonathan. This is the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Équinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. In our top stories in this edition of the news, Human Rights Watch continues mounting pressure on the United Nations Security Council and the international community to impose targeted sanctions on some members of the Cameroon government over the deepening Anglophone crisis. The rights organization says that violence is on the rise in the Anglophone Northwest and Southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon, and the stealing of vehicles is on the rise in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. The National Gendarmerie has arrested 6 alleged bandits involved in that illegal activity. We shall also talk about desertification that is increasingly becoming a serious threat to food security and livelihood in the far north region of the Republic of Cameroon. Stay with us. Thanks, dear viewers, for joining us in this edition of the news on Équinoxe Television. International rights group Human Rights Watch has continued mounting pressure on the United Nations Security Council and the international community to impose targeted sanctions on some members of the Cameroon government in connection to the deepening Anglophone crisis. The organization says that violence is on the rise in the northwest and southwest regions. Inosenaze has more.
Watch in its latest report Monday, July 27, 2020, says the Cameroonian armed forces have attacked health units in the northwest region and arbitrarily arrested 7 health personnel in the southwest region. It reveals separatist fighters have killed at least 6 civilians, including a humanitarian worker and a teacher, since May 2020. The Rights Group estimates that at least 285 civilians have been killed in about 190 incidents since January 2020 in Anglophone Cameroon, based on information reported by the media and non-governmental organizations. While noting it cannot independently verify each case since January 2020, Human Rights Watch reports that violence has also displaced tens of thousands of people in the past 2 months, adding to the hundreds of thousands who have fled their homes since the conflict began in late 2016. Human Rights Watch says it interviewed by telephone 20 victims and witnesses of human rights abuses by the military and separatists between mid-May and early June 2020, as well as 15 family members of victims, residents, doctors, and civil society actors. It also reviewed photographs and video footage which corroborated witnesses' accounts. According to the rights organization, still clashes between the belligerents of the armed conflict on June 10 in Bali, northwest region, led to the death of a cardiac patient after a grenade was fired into the courtyard of the Bali district hospital. 4 persons were injured and 4 vehicles destroyed. It adds, it is not the first time this health center is attacked. According to Lewis Mudge, Central Africa Director at Human Rights Watch, talks between government and separatist leaders, which began June 16 with hope to continue, should include ensuring respect for human rights and accountability for abuses. That all parties to the talks should publicly commit to immediately end abuses against civilians and ensure that victims of abuses have access to effective remedies. Lewis Mudge pleads that Cameroon's international partners and the UN Security Council should help civilians in the Anglophone regions who are facing violence on daily basis and demand government forces and separatist groups stop attacks on civilians. The Human Rights Watch official concludes by suggesting targeted sanctions be imposed on Cameroonian government, including travel ban and asset freezes. Separatist leaders be held responsible for abuses and consider the same for government forces involved in abuses.
Despite efforts of municipal authorities in Buea, Limbe, Kumba, and other parts of the northwest or the southwest and northwest regions of Cameroon, ghost town imposed by separatist fighters is still respected by the inhabitants of the two Anglophone regions within the context of the 4-year-long armed conflict in that part of the country. Last week, the city mayor of Limbe in the southwest region announced punishment for all those who will respect Ghost Town today, all business persons who will respect Ghost Town today. And our reporter Davidson Maimo says many business sites in the town of Limbe were simply closed today. His report.
We are hereby calling on all service providers to open their doors on Mondays before the sledgehammer of repression, which we have tried to avoid all this while, falls on anyone.
Limbe City Mayor Mutanga Andrew Monjimba spitting venom last Thursday, the 23rd of July, after the administrative, management and stores account of the first ordinary session against any business person who dare respect the traditional Monday ghost town forcefully implemented by Anglophone separatists. The stink from his venom is still to be felt. Monday, the 27th of July 2020, 90% of business places remained closed, except of a few, mostly business persons occupying council business structures along the New Town Market that partially opened their doors, with most of their goods not displayed. According to the Limbe City Mayor, the Anglophone crisis with its series of ghost town had a devastating effect on the city council budget for 2019, with a nosedive in revenue percentage from 64.0 in 2018 to 52 in 2019.
With this phenomenon of ghost town, you don't know how much money we lose in this Limbe for one day when people don't work.
The ongoing demolition exercise of makeshift structures and haphazard petty businesses along Major Street equally took center stage during the session, with firm warning dished out against recalcitrant persons.
We are going to put up monitoring teams to work 24 on 24 to make sure nobody comes back to litter the streets.
The administration assured the Limbe City Board that every decision taken shall be backed by the administration, defense, and the security.
I want to insist on this issue of ghost town. You shall always count on us.
Another worrisome issue faced by the Limbe City Council is the construction of an ultra-modern market project that was expected to kick off this year.
We expected some amount of money, 2 billion, we could not recover it for reasons beyond our control, for bureaucracy reasons. It didn't work.
Though a run CPDM council expecting all city councillors to toe party line, some city councillors differed with a 300,000 CFA francs tax levied for any person wishing to bury the loved one within his or her premises. Some of them argued that the indigenous people of Limbe should not be punished to use their village land. 2019 saw the Limbe City Council, just like other councils in the northwest and southwest regions, involved in fewer projects, with most of the projects still to be completed, contract dues still to be paid, accumulated staff arrears. All these, local authorities say, is due to the close to 4 years ongoing Anglophone crisis.
Davidson Maimo reporting there from Limbe. Now in the southwest region, we take a look at the situation there with our correspondent Davidson, or rather Derek Jato, who rather takes us into the sports domain and the impact of the COVID-19 and of course the Anglophone crisis.
But as a federation, we try to keep this team surviving the COVID-19 hit as a federation. The Cameroon National President of Athletics Federation, Motombi Emmanuel Mbome, revealed to Equinoxe Television in Buea the state of affairs at the level of the National Federation vis-a-vis the COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, you know, the pandemic has touched all the nooks and crannies, but
as a federation, we hope that we could kickstart our activities on the 29th of August. An event program in anticipation. To that, we are organizing an international competition which is named Grand Prix, which was supposed to be in the month of May. We have pushed it to the month of September, precisely on the 26th of September. We just hope that the COVID-19 is going to give way for our athletes to get back to the pitch and prepare themselves for the African Games and the Olympic Games that will be coming up next year. Away from COVID-19, since 2017, the Cameroon Athletics Federation had difficulties in organizing events in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, especially the annual Mount Cameroon Race of Hope. Because of the resistance from the separatist fighters, the secessionists never wanted any event that has to do with the Yaoundé regime. The national president of Athletics Federation comes back on why it was necessary to keep and respect the annual rendezvous, even amid gunshot.
The Cameroon Race of Hope has been a tradition to the Boyaman. It will be an injury if we skip the organization of this race for 1 year.
Today his tenacity is attracting recognition. Motomi Emmanuel Mbome, the Cameroon National President of Athletics Federation, recently received an award in Boya from Lifetime Media Group for not disappointing the athletics family despite all odds.
I would still carry what was given to me here in Boya to Yaoundé, present it to them. I will see how we could feast for this victory. It is our victory, it is not my victory.
And the government of Cameroon is considering additional measures to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on enterprises across the country. The Cameroon Employees Trade Union, GICAM, said today that 3,119 billion francs CFA is lost annually in income by enterprises as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, and 53,000 jobs equally lost as a result of the health problem affecting the country and the rest of the world. The president of the Cameroon Employers Trade Union, Celestin Tawamba, was speaking today and revealing these figures, or presenting these figures during a video conference meeting with the Prime Minister, Chief Dr. Joseph Dion-Gute, and other members of government, including the Ministers of Finance, Economy and Regional Development and Trade. And the government is now considering other additional measures that should be taken in the days ahead in order to reduce the impact of the pandemic on enterprises across the country. 6 alleged bandits said to be involved in the stealing and selling of vehicles in Douala are now in the dragnet of the National Gendarmerie. They were presented to the public today here in Douala. Details in this report by Smart Njikan Gebre.
Fungwi Famous, aka Famous Co. Edison Che, aka Menkere, 29-year-old, Niba Ajine Akungwi, 34-year-old, Niba Samuel Che, 40-year-old, Ngwa Emmanuel Che, aka Mobile Money, 30-year-old, and Niba Valentine So, 28-year-old, are the unfortunate members of a gang involved in car theft within Douala, who have just fallen into the dragnet of the gendarmes in Bonanjo. According to security sources, the alleged bandits were involved in the attack of a certain Fokwe Ferdinand in the night of 14th June, breaking 15th of June 2020, making away with his Toyota Avensis, a laptop, 2 cell phones, and the sum of 110,000 francs CFA.
I don't know what I'm here, sir. They arrest those people that they went and stole somebody's vehicle. I sleep in my house, they come and collect me. I don't know why they come and collect me. When they come to my house to collect me, they come and meet me with this my own things.
After a complaint left at the Gendarmerie Legion office in Bonanjo, an investigation was opened which led to the arrest of this group in neighborhoods like Bonendale and El Village in Douala. After a thorough investigation, it was clear that Fungwi Femas, Ndifo Edison Che, and Ngwa Emmanuel took active part in the attack on Fokwe Ferdinand. Neighbor Samuel Che joined the group to facilitate the sale of the stolen vehicle in Yaoundé and is specialized at scamming his victims. Neighbor Ajine was the arms provider. The alleged bandit had 4 locally made pistols, 10 hunting cartridges, a balaclava, which they used in stealing from their enemies. A ream of paper cut in the sizes of banknotes was also discovered in their keeping.
I'm a failed man, I cannot harm myself. That's how I used to live my life. In this world, there are so many things in this life that people used to earn living with it. This is the way I'm using to earn my own living. I've been doing it now for 12 years. It's a business. If I see you and introduce my business to you, if you like the business, you will do the business with me. If you don't like, they don't force people to do this business.
The alleged armed bandits were later transferred to the court, where they will be judged and, if guilty, transferred to the prison.
And the first encroaching desert in the far north region of the country is increasingly becoming a very serious threat to food security and livelihood in that part of the Republic of Cameroon, and the fight against desertification is being intensified with the planting of hundreds of trees. As for me, Armstrong Sander reports.
The fight against climate change is being intensified in Waza, in the Lugona Shari division of the far north region of Cameroon. In Waza, the project to afforest 1,400 hectares of land within councils of the savannah and the transition zones in Cameroon has been launched. The initiative, piloted by the divisional officer for Waza, the mayor for the locality, and the local focal points for the 1,400 trees project. The afforestation process will unfold under a laid-down procedure and norms. It will focus on the security of each and every single plant. According to officials, 50 hectares of land will be afforested with fruit trees and placed under the control of the Waza National Park conservators. If that could be done over a large portion of land, it will be just good. It will contribute to keep the local population away from the restricted zone, which is the national park. The project, dubbed 1,400 hectares, is expected to boost the living conditions of the local people, change their environment for good, reduce economic exodus, and boost the fight against poverty in areas threatened by the desert.
In the report coming up next, Immaculate Fogwe takes us into Pao Tosul in Tuboro in the far north, in the north region of the Republic of Cameroon, and she says that traditional rulers of Tuboro in the north region of the country are decrying the recent appointment of Adamu Njingwi as president of the customary court, and these chiefs question his competence as he has no idea of the custom and traditions of the land, according to the traditional rulers. Immaculate Fogwe.
In a petition addressed to the Minister of Justice and Keeper of the Seal, Laurent Esso, traditional rulers and the population of Tuburu in the north region of Cameroon decry the recent nomination of Adamu Njingwi as president of the customary court. I am not happy about his nomination. He's not from this locality, so it will be difficult for him to judge the cases brought to him in respect of our customs and tradition. He knows nothing. The administration should choose someone else who is from our area and has a good mastery of our custom and tradition. These traditional rulers also decry the fact that they were commissioned by the government, but no certificate has been awarded to them. When I visit other palaces, I can see the Cameroonian flag hoisted, but that is not the case with some other chiefs. I am a second-class chief. Since we were nominated, we have not received any salary. How are they expecting us to go and vote during the upcoming regional elections? These traditional rulers are calling on the Minister of Territorial Administration to regularize their situation.
Talking Point is up next. Thanks for us from the Northwest Regional Capital Bamenda. Jato Richard, veteran journalist working with Radio Hot Cocoa in the town of Bamenda. Good evening, Jato.
Good evening to you, Babila, Jonathan. Good evening to all the viewers of Équinoxe Television.
Thanks for joining us today. You are in the Northwest Regional Capital Bamenda, where you have your ears and your eyes on the ground, monitoring all what is happening in the town of Bamenda, and information equally streaming into the studios of Radio Hot Cocoa from across the region. What's the situation in the town of Bamenda and the rest of the Northwest region today?
Today it's a bit calm in the town of Bamenda, and I mean getting information from the other parts of the region is a bit cold this day, the Monday, and of course you know it's traditionally a day when so many people have taken upon themselves to stay home, going by the calls by separatists for people to shut down. So it's been the usual atmosphere out here in Bamenda, but for the fact that some few bikes, you could see them circulating, and some other people who are struggling probably to get to hospitals for sick children, and others who can only manage to get food every blessed day to, prepare for their children. That notwithstanding, it's been a cold day in Bamenda. Nothing much to talk about, unless there are things happening around the region that we may only get to better be informed come tomorrow. For now, it's a bit cold out here in Bamenda.
Is the phenomenon of ghost town still being respected, as was the case in late 2016, 2017, 2018?
Hello, Babila.
Yes, is the ghost town phenomenon imposed by separatist fighters still being respected, as was the case in late 2016, 2017, and 2018?
Yes, to tell you that ghost town is not being respected, it's dishonest. People are indoors respecting the ghost towns. It's become a way of life on Mondays out here in Bamenda and the other parts of the region. So many people respect the ghost town. Maybe the reasons could vary. The consequence is just like the same. People are shut down.
All right. Human Rights Watch says that violence is rife despite recent peace talks. All parties of the talks should publicly commit to immediately end abuses against civilians and ensure that victims have access to effective remedies, says Human Rights Watch. Is violence still rife in the Northwest region? You have your ears on the ground, your eyes on the ground, monitoring what is happening and reporting news on the happenings in Bamenda and the rest of the Northwest region, and even Anglophone Cameroon at large. What have you been saying? What's been happening? What have you been hearing from the people?
Yes, there's violence. People are still being kidnapped. People are still being tortured. There's a lot of fear out here in the Northwest region, coming from both sides of those fighting, the separatists, the military, mindful of the fact that the civilian population is caught in between. There is a lot of fear. Nobody even knows who is doing what. But I want to make it very clear that the human rights analysis of violence is more with what they see physically. now with the COVID-19 and the war that is going on between separatists and forces loyal to the government, many people are home. And as they are home, there is more even domestic violence that is growing. Domestic violence. Children are very bored with staying home. Parents are no longer having the financial capability to take up their responsibility in bringing up families. So there's a lot of bitterness between family members. A man is not happy looking at the wife not happy seeing the children hungry. So there's even more domestic violence than that which, you know, Human Rights Watch is talking about. And with regards to the fact that the population from time to time keep running away from gunshots, either there's a crossfire in one quarter or the other, it's really putting the population in some kind of difficulty. So to be very honest to you, this violence now is more faster. And honestly, it's paying right. So I would maybe just want to make it very clear that whether it's active or one hope, and those fighting, I want to put it like that, is benefiting the population again for what reason. The population must still have benefit from this fight. So it's a difficult situation. Now COVID-19 has come in. It's adding and making a situation that
All right. How frequent gun battles occurring in different parts of the two regions? How frequently do you see corpses littering on the ground in different parts of the town of Bamenda and the two regions? How frequently atrocities generally committed in those parts of the region?
Well, for corpses out here in Bamenda, any moment you can be moving towards Sacred Heart, the Chobo neighborhood, you see a corpse. You can be passing along the commercial avenue, you see a corpse. 2, 3, 4 days, you see a corpse, maybe below Foncha. Anytime people just announce a corpse, either that which has been brought by some unknown person and deposited on the road, or that which you find the next day, corpses that are as a result of either theft or fighting, because there are also a lot of thieves who are taking advantage of the situation and they move into people's homes in the night, and the population is increasing on Havitila in neighborhood. So in every moment of 3 days, you can't go without hearing stories of a corpse lying somewhere or corpses. It's just a kind of life out there. That in villages, it's even work. Babylon, in villages, it's even work. Because nobody is there to report, you know, when corpses are linked. Most journalists can't move to a lot of villages because either they are road blocks or cars are not able to go, or there are some, with regard to the movement of the population, or brought back this communication. So it became very difficult for even the journalists about the many offices in village that are just minute by minute, day in, day out, village Babylon.
And now talking about the efforts of the military and other elements of the national armed forces, the heavy military deployment in the northwest region as a whole and in the town of Bamenda, is it helping the situation? Is it helping to restore some peace and normalcy, relative security?
Well, you know, at first when military moved into villages, a lot of people ran away from villages. In some villages, many people are not yet on the objectives of the military. There are other villages that are developing, especially the attitude of the military. It's not what the story that has held today is true. That some of them are very big, even for many people, respective of who. And there are other soldiers who are deep friendly. and the kind side of the village. And some villages are already accommodating this, which is helping up. But we cannot undermine the fact that in most villages, some military officers have been but their presence is not doing impact to the population that is even the higher result of back to the region. Just say that would improve on their human rights of the village and not helping the person as people do not understand mission.
How challenging is it for a reporter to gather, treat, and disseminate news in the northwest and the rest of Anglophone Cameroon, the northwest and the southwest regions?
It's very challenging, Babila. You have been here many times to Bamenda. The first thing is that road gets blocked to move to villages, and sometimes the drivers will not want to go. And most often, a media house, you don't know how the person look at you. You may say something that doesn't go in line with they want to hear. The day your media plan is, seen in those areas, it's a big problem. And to tell you that it's good for a journalist to go in there. And when there are gun battles, a journalist would find it difficult because when the soldiers and the separatists are shooting, most often they don't know that this person is a journalist. They don't know what is bringing you in the community, especially when you are in a strange person. You start asking questions. Instructors go home with whom you are talking to give you information. So it's quite difficult, challenging for journalists to move in communities or information more because of the gun battles and now because of identification. Now you are in a village, by the community, people don't know you, already start suspecting you. Could this be a uniform officer in civilian outfit? Could this be a separatist? What could be the mission of this person? People are not even open to discuss because as a native is talking with you, it may be misinterpreted by the villagers that you are giving information that could be harmful to either side, So the journalists are also finding it quite difficult. And I think many more journalists are getting to break the myth now by, just being very professional to get information, especially from authorities who can get information and then use it. That's the way out. It's quite difficult, Babila. It's very difficult now.
Now, Jato Richard, this one is a personal question to you. The arrest, detention, and death of some journalists like Samuel Wazizi and Kingsley Njoka, who is now being detained in Yaoundé, does that make you afraid? Are you afraid sometimes to go about your duties?
No, I cannot be afraid because journalists have been arrested. A journalist in a conflict situation should be objective, you should be balanced, and you should be honest. And a journalist has gotten the responsibility to denounce injustice in community. A journalist has the responsibility to sensitize the population on things that will help them. A journalist has the responsibility to bring vote holders to account to do things that will benefit the community. That's the job of a journalist. It's our job to inform, and we need to be very balanced in the information, to speak the truth. When you do that as a journalist, you don't need to fear if you are arrested. They will arrest you for being honest. I don't think so. It's true that the government sometimes have a very heavy hand on a journalist, but a journalist should have a way out by just being objective, be balanced, don't bias. I'm not just talking personally, but I'm also the public relations officer for the Cameroon English-speaking Journalists Association, and I will tell you, Babila journalist, that to arrest journalists and jail, to kill a journalist does not help the government. Rather, the government should open up to journalists and give them information that you hide, and when they know it, it makes you to lose credibility. Why not be proactive to inform? What the government has been doing most often is that they come after the information to clarify. Why not just give the journalists the information and then let them use it so that it does not make polemics? What makes news is when the news is hiding and the journalists uncover. But when the journalist puts the news, people don't bother about it. But when it is hiding, it sells more. I think the government should take this lesson and leave journalists alone. And for journalists, be professional, be balanced, be objective. Or you choose to take side and be a communication officer for the government or the separatists, especially in time of conflict. When you want to be a journalist, remain a journalist. We don't fear. Fear for what? We do our job. I'm in Bamenda for 5 years in this crisis, and I do a balanced reporting, and I'm in Damocon Street, and I move along and I do my job. I don't mind the business of the soldiers, I don't mind the business of the separatists, but I mind news, the news that concerns people, because I'm accountable to the masses to which I belong. That is it, Jonathan.
Jato Richard, veteran journalist working with Radio Hot Cocoa in Bamenda, public relations officer of the Cameroon English-speaking Journalists Association. Thanks for joining us in this edition of the news on Équinoxe Television, Jato. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today.